Derrick Rose. Now, I like Derrick Rose. I think Derrick Rose is a good player. I think Derrick Rose was an MVP caliber player earlier in his career. I think Thibs ruined his knees by playing him too much. And he's gotten a lot of playing time with Thibs. And there was a quote today where Thibs said, if Rose is healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. Now, Thibs has a lot of confidence in Rose, obviously. He thinks highly of Rose, obviously. What do you make of those comments?
Well, I was going to make a comment about our defense and how it's been atrocious. We've given up 112, 123, 140, and if the trend continues, probably around 165 tonight against the Pacers. But I think we all know our defense is bad. Derrick Rose, I love Derrick Rose. When Derrick Rose was coming into the league as a rookie, he became my favorite player very, very quickly because of his explosiveness. The plays that he made, some of the scoop shot layups, the trick shots, it almost seemed like, were insane. Finishing the and ones. That's the kind of basketball I liked watching. A lot of people nowadays love the three ball. Steph Curry, love watching that kind of thing. But I think Derrick Rose is a good player in this league. I think he's a B-plus player in this league right now.
Yeah, and I'm not denying Derrick Rose can't play anymore, but he definitely can't play at the level he did before. No. His knees are just shot. And you can see the motors there, which I think that's what Thibs loves the most. You can see Rose running around on the court like he's still that player. The problem is he just can't make those plays. And it's not so much. Thibs has a lot of confidence in Rose, and he just basically lets Rose go out and do his thing on the court. And what he said about Rose today, and he talked about, one of the best players in the league when he's healthy. And I thought, he's talked about Jimmy like that, talked about Rose like that. I'm sure he's talked about Taj like that, in sense of like just enamored with them. How has he ever talked about a player other than his Bulls? What about Cat? What about Wiggins? What about Tyus? What about Okogie, who got his first career start on Saturday and looked pretty good? And what about Justin Patton? What about Keita Bates-Diop? Why is it that
Justin Patton hasn't played a game?
But
really,
but he spent all last year in Iowa as a first-round draft pick.
He spent all last year with a broken foot.
Still, he spent
in Iowa because he had a broken foot for the first 2/3 of the season.
Okay, and maybe he's a bad one, and I'll take him off the list. But even still, basically, the ones I want to focus in on are Cat and Wiggins. And Wiggins,
you think Wiggins is deserving of that? Saying that he's one of the best players in the league?
No, I'm not saying that.
I love Wiggins, but I don't think he's.
No, I'm not saying of that. I'm not saying of the best players in the league. But has Thibs ever said anything positive about Cat or Wiggins? Can we think of a quote?
It does kind of seem like that. He's like just the constructive criticism, and he never once builds up a player and like, hey, you did good there. He always is like looking for the bad things.
He's always like, they need to work harder. The biggest problem with Thibs isn't, and it's that too. It's also, he always thinks that we can just solve it if we just work harder and we grind and we work harder. And yeah, don't get me wrong. I want Wiggins to work hard. Wiggins needs to work hard, and I understand that criticism of Wiggins, and I'm one of the biggest Wiggins haters when it comes to his work ethic. But you can't just, like you said, you can't just constructively criticize your players like that without building them up a bit. And this is how Thibs loses the locker room. There was already a divide between the regular Wolves and the Timberwolves. And it doesn't help when Cat and Wiggins, who are signed to max contracts and are here for the long term, and Jimmy's not. And Derrick Rose, who probably he could stick around in this year and or next year and maybe even another year after, but he's not here for the long haul. Your future is Cat, Wiggins, and this young core with not Patton, but Okogie, Keita Bates-Diop. And my point is, there's a reason why Wiggins and Cat don't like Thibs. Because they feel like no matter how hard they work, no matter how much they do, and this is more on Cat than Wiggins, I'm more focusing on Cat than Wiggins. No matter how much Cat does, no matter how hard he works, Cat improved his defense. Cat is one of the most efficient players in the NBA when you look at win shares. And he doesn't get the credit he deserves from his head coach. And if I'm Cat, I'm frustrated. I've been on teams where if you put in, I've seen players put in hard work, and when the coach doesn't recognize it, they really feel it. Because they feel like, why am I working hard if I don't get the recognition I need from the people who should be building me up like that? And I think that's one of Thibs' biggest weaknesses, and it really shows. And this Derrick Rose comment is the epitome of Thibs doesn't know how to manage these young guys, and his inability to build up Cat and Wiggins at least in his system, is a reason why he's going to fail in Minnesota.
One quick note on Derrick Rose before the top of the hour.
All right.
Is a lot of people say that it's pretty easy to make the NBA Hall of Fame because basketball's got like a World Hall of Fame or something, and so the best players in the world play in the NBA. Derrick Rose might be the only MVP to never make the Hall of Fame.
I can see that, just because of how hard he fell when he fell.
And he'd have to do, in my opinion, he has to do something pretty spectacular with the tail end of his career.
He has to get back to being a starter, first of all.
Get back into that. And so, like, for him, you know, that's why his motor's running.
Yeah.
Because he, you know, not that he feels disrespected, but
he feels he has to get back to that level. Well, and if it wasn't for Thibs, do you think Rose would even be in the NBA? I don't think he'd be what he is in Minnesota.
I don't know. That's a good. It took me a second to kind of gather what you were getting at with that question, but I understand now. Like, would he have gotten another chance?
I think he would have, but it wouldn't have been as powerful as the one he had. Thibs
Probably
basically
not.
lets him run around like he's the old Derrick Rose. And again, that's why. And this isn't about Derrick Rose. I like Derrick Rose. I think he provides an overall good to the team, but it's how he does. I think the way Thibs plays him, it hurts the team more than it helps the team, because Thibs basically doesn't have a role for him other than run around and be 2011 Derrick Rose.